Introduction. The illusion of simplicity. In 2016, audiences around the world were introduced to Zootopia, a bright, fast-paced, and at first glance lighthearted animated film. A story about a world where animals live like humans. They work, build careers, face challenges, make mistakes, and try to understand one another in a complex and ever-changing society. The film quickly won over viewers. It felt simple, fun, and accessible to all ages. But behind this apparent lightness lay something far more complex. In reality, Zootopia became one of the most risky, expensive, and creatively challenging projects in the history of Walt Disney Animation Studios. Over several years, the film repeatedly changed direction. The story was rewritten, characters disappeared and reappeared, and the very concept of the project was at times under serious threat. At certain moments, the film stood dangerously close to cancellation. Zootopia did not emerge by chance, nor was it the result of a lucky coincidence. It was the product of years of searching, creative debate, internal conflict within the studio, and bold decisions that Disney does not make lightly. The birth of the idea. The idea for the film belonged to director Byron Howard, one of the key creative figures at Disney Animation. For a long time, he had been fascinated by a simple but powerful question. What would happen if we took a modern metropolis and replaced humans with animals? Not a fairy tale forest, not a magical kingdom, and not a farm, but a real city. A city with skyscrapers, traffic jams, offices, police departments, bureaucracy, and social inequality. The creators drew inspiration from real-world cities such as New York, Tokyo, and London. Megacities where millions of very different people with different backgrounds, personalities, and opportunities are forced to coexist within a limited space. From the very beginning, Zootopia was conceived as a social parable. A story not just about animals, but about how society itself functions. And in its earliest form, this parable was far harsher, darker, and more provocative than the final version audiences would eventually see. The first version, A Dark World. The early version of Zootopia differed dramatically from the finished film. The main character was originally meant to be Nick Wilde the fox, and the city itself was portrayed as a place of constant tension, fear, and deep mistrust. In this version of the world, predators were considered dangerous by default. They were feared, distrusted, and forced to wear special electronic collars designed to suppress aggression and control behavior. Society was built on a single principle: security mattered more than freedom. Surveillance, control, and suspicion became a normal part of everyday life. It was a world where prejudice had become law and fear had turned into the primary tool of governance. The creators wanted to show how fear slowly destroys a society from within. But in practice, the story became too heavy, too dark, and emotionally oppressive, especially for a family-oriented Disney audience. The Project Crisis. When the early versions of the film were shown to test audiences, the reaction was alarming. Viewers did not connect emotionally with the characters. The world felt cold and hostile, and the main character came across as cynical and distant. Inside the studio, serious discussions began. The project had already been in development for several years, enormous resources had been invested, and shutting it down would have meant admitting a major creative failure. But continuing in the same direction was no longer an option. At that moment, Disney made one of its boldest decisions, a complete reboot of the project, almost from scratch. The birth of Judy Hopps. After the reboot, the center of the story shifted to a new character, Judy Hopps, a rabbit. Small, naive, yet incredibly determined. She comes from a quiet rural town where everyone knows each other and no one believes in big dreams. Judy wants to become a police officer, a profession traditionally reserved in Zootopia for large, strong, and often predatory animals. To those around her, her ambition seems ridiculous, even laughable. But through Judy, the story gained a new universality. It stopped being a tale about predators versus prey and became a story about labels, societal expectations, and the internal struggle against self-doubt. The theme of prejudice. Zootopia addresses complex social issues with great care and intelligence. The film avoids direct real-world analogies and refuses to force conclusions on its audience. It shows how even good intentions can lead to discrimination, how fear and stereotypes spread faster than facts, and how easily society begins dividing people into us and them. What's important is that the characters make mistakes. Even Judy, an optimistic and well-meaning hero, is far from perfect and must face the consequences of her actions. This honesty is what makes the story feel alive, mature, and deeply human. Creating the city. The city of Zootopia became a full-fledged character in its own right. It is divided into distinct climatic and social zones. The desert-like Sahara Square, the icy Tundra Town, the humid rainforest district, the business center, micro-neighborhoods designed for rodents. Each zone was given its own architecture, color palette, and emotional tone. The creators wanted the city to feel complex, believable, and governed by its own internal logic. Animators asked questions rarely explored in animation before. How does transportation work for animals of vastly different sizes? How are buildings designed? How do residents from different districts interact with one another? Research and preparation. The Disney team conducted extensive research. Animators visited zoos and wildlife reserves, observing animals up close and studying their movement, posture, and reactions. But the goal was not strict realism. What mattered most was believability. The animals needed to feel alive and authentic, while still remaining expressive and cartoon-like. Every movement went through dozens, sometimes hundreds, of revisions before reaching the final cut. Technology and fur. One of the greatest technical challenges was animating fur. Each character had millions of individual hairs that needed to move naturally and consistently. For Zootopia, Disney developed an entirely new rendering system that allowed for highly detailed fur without sacrificing performance. This innovation became a major technological breakthrough for the studio and laid the groundwork for future animated films. Humor and supporting characters. Despite its serious themes, Zootopia is filled with humor. The famous sloth scene, for example, began as an internal joke among the animation team and eventually became one of the most iconic moments in the film. Supporting characters were given distinct personalities and small narrative arcs, making the city feel truly alive and inhabited. Music and sound. The music, composed by Michael Giacchino, played a crucial role in shaping the film's emotional impact. It emphasized both the vast scale of the city and the more intimate moments of the story. The song, Try Everything, became the film's musical signature, an anthem of perseverance, failure, and moving forward despite fear. Release and success. Upon its release, Zootopia became a global phenomenon. The film earned more than $1 billion worldwide and received the Academy Award for Best Animated Feature. But its greatest success was the audience response. Viewers discussed it, analyzed its themes, and discovered new layers of meaning with each rewatch. Legacy. Zootopia proved that animation can be more than entertainment. It can be intelligent, layered, and socially meaningful. The film demonstrated that animation is not a genre, it is a powerful medium of storytelling. Final. The story behind the creation of Zootopia is a story about courage, about knowing when to let go of familiar ideas in order to find something stronger. The world of animals became a mirror of our own world, and that is precisely why Zootopia remains relevant to this day.